welcome back to my channel, LaLas Land. So I have for you guys today a very different type of video, one I've never done here on my channel before. Some of you guys may know and some of you may not, but I am a huge true crime fan. I love the ID channel, which is Investigation Discovery. I like movies about serial killers. I like the show on Netflix called Mind Hunters. I listen to true crime podcasts. I just love true crime. I am just enamored by, I honestly think it's the dark side of humanity. I don't know what it is, but I just love it. After talking with a few of you guys told me how much you guys like true crime also. So I put a poll up on Instagram a while back asking you guys if you'd like to see things about true crime here on my channel, and a lot of you guys said you would. So I'm really excited to share this with you. Now, for now, it will stay here on the LaLas Land channel, but depending on how well the videos do, if people are really responding, then I could possibly do a second channel. I'm just not sure as of yet. Before I get into the story that I want to share with you guys, please remember that if you're not subscribed, please take the time to hit the subscribe button down below. I would absolutely love to have you as part of my friends and family here on YouTube. And remember, whether you're new or returning, you can always click that bell so you'll get notifications of future videos. So the murderer that I would like to talk to you guys about today, when I already knew about this case, but when I was trying to think of who was the first person I wanted to talk about, who was the first murderer that I wanted to talk about with you guys, only one person came to mind. So we are going to discuss the story of the Unicorn Killer. Yes, you guys heard me right, the Unicorn Killer. So in Philadelphia in 1977, the police made a horrible discovery in the apartment of Ira Einhorn. Ira Einhorn, who called himself the Unicorn because his last name in German means one horn. So he was dubbed the Unicorn Killer by media and investigators who worked on the case. So in order to be the Unicorn Killer, it means he killed someone. So Ira Einhorn, the Unicorn Killer, he did kill his ex-girlfriend. That's who he killed. Her name was Helen Holly Maddox. She went by Holly. Okay, so just to briefly tell you the story before we go into detail about Einhorn's or the Unicorn Killer's story, he murdered his ex-girlfriend and the police in Philadelphia found her body in his closet. And then he was on the run. And so that is the story in a nutshell, and now we're going to go into some detail. So Ira Einhorn, like I said, he called himself the Unicorn because of his last name. So he considered himself a radical hippie, which means he didn't do a lot of the things that you and I think are normal, like bathe regularly, get haircuts, use deodorant, things of that nature. He didn't do those. He did not do those things. Because of his lackadaisical attitude about hygiene, a lot of people who knew him referred to him as always having a very unpleasant odor and that it smelled like a hoagie with onions. Gross. So on top of not taking care of his hygiene as far as bathing and using deodorant, he also did not groom his hair or his beard. He would never comb it out, and so that gave him a very unkempt appearance. So also, he was a teacher at the University of Pennsylvania, and students reported that sometimes he would take his clothes off in front of them, and a lot of people would say if they went to his house, whether they were invited or they popped up, he would open the door wearing no clothes at all. He had a lot of sadistic tendencies. According to one of his ex-girlfriends, not only was he violent towards his girlfriends, one time he choked her almost to unconsciousness, but he also had a thing for torturing small animals. His former girlfriend said that he used to like to take cats and take them in the shower just to listen to them scream, and then he said he got some sort of perverse pleasure out of it. So despite his personal hygiene issues and his non-grooming and his personality flaws, he was very successful with getting women. He had no problem. He was very charismatic, so they kind of just flocked to him. However, once he got the women, he treated them in a awful, like, chauvinistic manner. He expected them to do all his bidding. He would have them comb his hair when he wanted it combed, and he would have them braid his hair, and basically he expected them to tend to his every need. Now, while he was dating Holly Maddox, which again, as I said, is his ex-girlfriend that he murdered, he openly cheated on her during their relationship. According to a friend who knew the couple, they went to a party one time to go hang out, and he met some other woman while he was there, and he had a friend give Holly Maddox, his girlfriend, a ride home so he could go cheat with this new woman. And to top it off, it was all done in front of Holly Maddox. She knew it. So on September 9th, 1977, Helen Holly Maddox, who I'm going to start referring to just as Holly, she was ready for a fresh start. She was with Einhorn for 5 years. That's got to be a long 5 years. She was 30 years old. She was from Tyler, Texas originally, and she had finally gathered the courage to break it off with him. So while Einhorn, who said he was a hippie and preached all about love and all that jazz, Holly knew that there was a dark side to him, so she was a little nervous by breaking up with him. And I mean, I would be as well. So when she left him that day, he threatened to throw all of her belongings out into the street if she didn't come back and get the rest of her things. So she obviously didn't want to lose her stuff, so she made the decision to go back one more time to the apartment, and it saddens me to say, but Holly Maddox was never seen alive again. So Einhorn told police when they came to question him that she had gone for tofu and she just never came back. Now, 18 months later, a year and a half goes by, and the neighbors below Einhorn started complaining that a very foul-smelling reddish-brown liquid was leaking from his ceiling. So that would be from the floor of Einhorn's apartment. So the police go and they go to Einhorn's apartment and they're searching it, and they go into a closet. In the closet, they found a chest, like a trunk, and they opened the trunk and they found the remains of Holly Maddox's body, partially mummified. She'd been in there so long and had decomposed, and her remains only weighed 37 pounds. They did an autopsy of what was left, and that did reveal that she was bludgeoned to death, so it looks like he continuously beat her with a very heavy object. So after the investigators found Holly's body in a trunk in his closet, they decided to start, obviously, getting to know who Ira Einhorn was a little bit more. So they dug into his past and found that he had a violent history. So he had a violent history, and it was in past relationships. So while they do believe that Maddox was the first person he ever killed, they do know that he did physically abuse 2 previous girlfriends. So one of the ex-girlfriends said when she tried to break up with him, he almost strangled her to death. And the second ex-girlfriend said that when she tried to break up with him, he took a glass bottle and smashed it over her head. So to investigators, it was clearly indicated that he had a very, very violent reaction when women rejected him. So the name of the detective who found Holly's body was Michael Chitwood, and he did an interview with Time, and he said that he will never forget Einhorn's response when they found Holly. The detective said, "It looks like we found Holly," and Ira Einhorn said, "You found what you found." Like, guess so. And one other thing about Einhorn was, as I think I previously said, he was very charismatic. So as unkempt as he was, he had a good circle of friends, and they were a lot of socialites and wealthy people in the community. He would convince them that he was one person that he was not. So after his arrest, of course, he went to all of his social circle and tried to convince everyone that he had been framed. A lot of his friends were shocked because they knew him as the person who talked about nonviolence and love and, you know, all that hippie stuff that he was all about. And so they were shocked that he was arrested for this crime. So like I said, he tried to convince his friends and everyone that he had been framed. So he's saying that he was framed by the Secret Service or the KGB because that's who murdered her, because he found secrets of mind control and they wanted to hush him up. He insisted that the CIA or the KGB wanted him to look like a murderer so that nobody would believe the things that he said when he talked, if he ever talked about the mind control and the other secrets that he found out about. Now, somehow, you know, he was arrested, and somehow his lawyer was able to convince the courts to release him on a $4,000 bail, which was paid by one of his wealthy friends in his social circle. In January 1981, a week before his trial was expected to begin, what do you think he did? That's right. He jumped bail. So he jumped bail, he fled the United States, and he went to different countries in Europe. And the first one, I believe, was Ireland, and that's because most likely they don't have any type of extradition treaty. And then he moved on to other countries over in Europe. Now, during his European travels, he met a woman, and her name is Annika Floden. And I'm not sure, 100% sure if I'm saying it correctly, Annika Floden, but she was a Swedish woman, and they met and they got married. They moved to like a rural area in France in 1993. Also, the year 1993 is important. Not only did he marry someone else, he also, even though he was not here in the United States, we have something here in the United States called absentia, where because he was arraigned already here, he was arraigned and then he was released on bail, and then of course he fled, but he had been arraigned for his crime. So in 1993 they went ahead and they convicted him of the murder of Holly Maddox in absentia, is what they call it when you're not physically here. And they sentenced him to life in prison without the possibility of parole. So after that, a massive manhunt was put out there for Ira Einhorn, and he was on America's Most Wanted. You guys remember that show with John Walsh. So John Walsh, I want to read these because I don't want to get his quotes wrong. On America's Most Wanted, John Walsh, the host, saying that Einhorn could appear to be both a drugged out hippie psychopath and a visionary genius. So that's dangerous, because one minute he can seem like an insane person, and the next minute he could be someone completely different. Authorities finally caught up to him June 13th of 1997, and he was living this wonderful, idyllic life. So while he was out on the lam, he met a lot of very wealthy and influential people. So some of the influential people that he met were Peter Gabriel, the British musician, and also Hank Harrison, a Grateful Dead biographer, and Courtney Love's father. Neither one of those men admitted to knowing that he was wanted by police. However, Barbara Bronfman, she was a Canadian heiress who, she was a Canadian socialite who had ties to the Seagram distillery. He was well aware that he was a fugitive, but still continued to send him plenty of money while he was on the run. So what happened was the police questioned her over and over and over again. She finally admitted that yes, she knew he was a fugitive and that she had given him money for several years because she believed he was innocent, because she believed what he said. And so finally she gave up the name of his new wife. After she gave up the name of the new wife, then French officials were able to track them down. They were able to track him down, and I don't know if I'm going to say this city right, but it was in Champagne-Mouton, France. And they arrested him on June 13th of 1997. Now, as I said before, you guys know he was already convicted in absentia here in the United States for the murder of Holly Maddox. So American authorities tried to extradite him. So there was a lot of legal stuff that happened. So America tried to extradite him back to the US, and they tried it many times, and there were a lot of hiccups. And in the description box below, I'll have some different reference websites, so if you really want to go into detail about all the different motions that were filed and why they didn't send him back over, then you can go ahead and check those out. But basically, he kept appealing it, and they refused to send him over because he was saying that the US wanted him back so we could kill him with the death penalty. And so France said, no, we're not going to send him back. So the US had to come back and say, we didn't get the death penalty. He was already convicted, and they sentenced him to life without parole. But in 1997, he tried to appeal that as well, and the French court said, no, we're rejecting that. We're going to send you back. Einhorn was so distraught that he was going to have to spend the rest of his life in prison. While he was in France, he was on house arrest. So during this time, he was so upset that he was going to have to spend the rest of his life in prison because, I mean, you did kill someone. But he tried to kill himself by slitting his own throat. That was in July, and that was in July of 2001. But he didn't do that right. So he was treated for his injuries and they shipped him back to the USA. A year before he was extradited back, they put up huge pictures of him in Philadelphia where he lived and where he murdered poor Holly Maddox. And the people hated him so much, they would throw tomatoes at these huge posters and billboards of him in Philadelphia. The Philadelphia News also had people send in messages that they would, I guess, post when Einhorn got here so that he could read them. Just hate messages to him. A lot of people wrote a lot of crazy messages, things like what they hoped would happen to him while he was in prison. According to the newspaper's editor, their goal was to make Einhorn feel as miserable as possible. So keep this in mind that he wasn't captured until 1997, and that was several years after both of Holly Maddox's parents were no longer here. They died, which is so sad because both of her parents went to their grave without ever getting any final justice for their daughter's murder. So Maddox's father took his own life in 1988, and in 1990 Maddox's mother passed away from emphysema, which people who knew her said actually worsened very much after the passing of her daughter Holly Maddox. So since her parents were gone, her 3 sisters and brother were the ones here in the US fighting to get him extradited here. Now in between them capturing him and when he got extradited, Philadelphia actually passed a law which is now called the Einhorn Law, and what that does is it allows people who were tried and convicted in absentia, they can request another trial. So in October of 2002, Ira Einhorn, aka the Unicorn Killer, was convicted a second time of murdering his ex-girlfriend Holly Maddox 25 years earlier, and he was sentenced again to the rest of his life in prison without the possibility of parole. He is now currently serving a life sentence in prison in Philadelphia. Thankfully, justice was finally completed for Holly Maddox. I really hope that you guys, maybe this year, if you're into this, don't forget you can look in the description box below and I'll have a couple links to some different references that I used to get some of this information. Also, there is a movie from 1999 that I have never seen, but it does have Naomi Watts in it, and I believe it's from 1999, and that movie is called The Hunt for the Unicorn Killer. So you could also check that out. Maybe, I don't know if it's on Netflix or Hulu or however you find it, but I think if I remember correctly, I think the entire movie is actually here on YouTube. So if I can find that here on YouTube, I'll link it down below also. But I hope that you guys enjoyed this story. I really love true crime, like I said before. I really hope that you guys enjoyed it. Remember that if you do like this video, please make sure you give it a thumbs up. It doesn't just help my channel, but it also helps me see what you guys like, if you're liking the content, if I should do more of these. So please comment down below and let me know what you think. Let me know if you have any recommendations of maybe any other murderers or true crime stories or serial killers that you would like me to research and possibly do a video on to talk about. I also would like to have any kind of discussion amongst you and each other down below. I love that part about YouTube, is that we can communicate with each other. And also remember, if you're not subscribed but you like these videos, go ahead, the subscribe button is down below, so go ahead and click that, and don't forget that bell so you can get notified when my videos come out. I look forward to talking with you guys, and as always, I appreciate everybody and all of your support so much, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye guys!